Dr. Ilara Kwan hunched over her workstation, the holographic brain scans hovering before her like ghostly constellations. 3 years of research, thousands of neural recordings, all pointing to something the scientific community refused to acknowledge. "You're seeing patterns in randomness again, Ilara," her department head had said last week, not bothering to hide his condescension. "The human brain doesn't suddenly level up, like some video game character." But the evidence was right there in the scans, impossible neural pathways forming in moments of extreme crisis, brainwave patterns that shouldn't exist within the established framework of neuroscience. The combat footage played silently on her secondary monitor. Private Michaels, surrounded by enemy combatants, his squad dead, somehow fighting with such precision and awareness that it bordered on precognition. The neural recording taken immediately afterward showed structures that hadn't existed in his previous scans. "Breakpoints," she whispered, tracing the anomalous patterns with her finger. "Evolutionary pressure points hidden in our DNA, waiting for the right trigger." Her lab door hissed open. Dr. Chandrasekhar entered, her expression grim. "Grant denied." Again. Ilara's shoulders slumped. "That was our last chance for funding. The committee called your research speculative to the point of fantasy. They suggested you focus on more grounded neurological phenomena." Priya's voice carried the practiced neutrality of someone delivering bad news they don't personally agree with. "Did you tell them about the statistical impossibility of?" "I showed them everything, Ilara. They don't want to see it." The alert on Ilara's phone interrupted their conversation. The Global Science Summit was starting in 30 minutes, and she was scheduled to present her findings, relegated to a side panel with minimal attendance, but still an opportunity. "Maybe someone there will listen," Ilara said, gathering her materials. The Summit Center's architecture was all gleaming curves and sustainable materials, designed to inspire optimism about humanity's scientific future. Ilara's presentation room, however, was tucked away in the East Wing, small and only half filled with attendees looking at their devices more than at her. "The implications are profound," she continued, despite the obvious disinterest. "If human cognition can fundamentally restructure itself under sufficient pressure, we need to reconsider our entire approach to neural plasticity and evolutionary psychology." A few polite nods, one genuine question about methodology. Then it was over. Her research dismissed without serious consideration. As Ilara packed up her equipment, the building shuddered. Then again, more violently. Emergency alarms blared as the ceiling began to crack. "Structural failure in sectors 3 through 7, announced an automated voice with eerie calm. "Please evacuate immediately." The exodus became chaos within seconds. Ilara found herself pushed against the flow, moving deeper into the building rather than toward safety. A child's cry pulled her attention to a collapsed walkway where a young girl was trapped, her mother desperately trying to lift the debris. Without thinking, Ilara rushed to help. The metal beam was impossibly heavy, but as the building continued to collapse around them, something shifted in her perception. Time seemed to slow. Her mind calculated leverage points, stress vectors, body mechanics, knowledge she'd never formally studied flowing through her consciousness. With strength she couldn't possibly possess, Ilara lifted the beam. The mother pulled her daughter free, eyes wide with disbelief. More people were trapped. Ilara moved from one crisis to another, her body and mind operating beyond normal human parameters. She wasn't alone. Around her, ordinary people performed extraordinary feats. A janitor holding up a collapsed wall with impossible endurance, an elderly physicist calculating an escape route through mathematical models he visualized in real time. Later, as emergency services treated the survivors, Ilara's hands trembled not from exhaustion but excitement. She'd witnessed it firsthand. Multiple breakpoints triggered by genuine crisis. High above Earth's atmosphere, undetected by human instruments, a crystalline vessel adjusted its trajectory. Inside, entities composed of latticed energy analyzed the unusual neural spikes emanating from the planet below. anomalies that shouldn't exist in a species at this development stage. The Voth had found something unexpected. They altered course toward Earth. 3 weeks after the summit disaster, Ilara stood among government officials and military personnel at Vandenberg Space Force Base, watching the sky. The massive alien vessel had appeared without warning, bypassing Earth's early detection systems as if they were relics from the Stone Age. "They're not responding to any communication attempts," General Rivera said, his voice tense. "Our defensive systems can't even lock onto them." The vessel, crystalline, fractal, impossibly beautiful, hovered 20 miles above the Pacific Ocean, defying both physics and human comprehension. No heat signature, no electromagnetic emissions, yet clearly artificial and purposeful. When they finally made contact, it wasn't through radio waves or digital signals, but mathematics, pure, elegant equations that decoded into a simple message. "We are Voth. We observe. We calculate. We will speak to your pattern seeker." Government cryptographers worked feverishly to determine who the pattern seeker might be. Ilara knew before they did. Her phone rang at midnight. "Dr. Kwan," the voice said without introduction, "the visitors are asking for you by name." The Voth emissary resembled a humanoid figure composed of interlocking crystalline structures that shifted and rearranged with each movement. Its voice, when it spoke, sounded like wind chimes translating quantum mechanics. "Your species has been categorized as Development Class 3, it said without preamble. "Limited cognitive potential, moderate adaptability, minimal transformative capability." They sat in a hastily arranged diplomatic chamber. Behind Ilara, Earth's representatives watched nervously. "Yet you display discontinuities," the Voth continued, geometric patterns rippling across its surface. "Anomalous neural events that conflict with established evolutionary models." "I call them breakpoints," Ilara replied steadily. "Moments when humans transcend their normal limitations." A poetic description for a mathematical improbability. The Voth's tone was neither dismissive nor impressed, merely analytical. "We have documented 8,421 species across this galactic region. None display such inconsistent performance metrics." Screens materialized around them, displaying incomprehensible symbols that Ilara somehow understood were equations describing human potential. She saw humanity reduced to variables and probabilities. Cold, elegant, and utterly missing the point. "You can't quantify the human spirit," she argued, earning nervous glances from the diplomats behind her. "All phenomena can be quantified," the Voth responded. "Your resistance to mathematical definition is noted but irrelevant." The diplomatic meeting continued for hours, the Voth explaining their mission of cataloging and categorizing all sentient life. Earth was merely another data point in their cosmic survey. As the meeting concluded, catastrophe struck. A power surge in the makeshift translation matrix caused a cascade failure. Explosions rocked the facility. In the confusion, Ilara found herself shepherded onto the Voth shuttle alongside the crystalline emissary and 3 human diplomats. "Emergency departure protocol engage," announced the Voth craft as it detached, only for its propulsion system to malfunction seconds later. "We are on a collision trajectory with your population center," the Voth stated with disturbing calm, projecting a holographic map showing their path directly toward Manhattan. "Our containment fields are compromised. Impact will result in approximately 1.4 million human casualties." The Voth engineer, if that's what it was, attempted repairs using tools that seemed to bend reality itself. Yet the craft continued its deadly descent. "The probability of successful intervention is 0.24%, the Voth announced, a mathematical certainty of failure. Ilara studied the alien technology, her mind racing. Although she couldn't possibly understand the principles behind it, something clicked in her awareness, not knowledge, but insight. "Your equations assume linear problem solving," she said suddenly. "But humans don't think linearly in crisis." Without waiting for permission, She reconfigured the alien tools in ways that violated the Voth's careful procedures. The human diplomats joined her, each contributing unexpected perspectives. Together, they created a solution that existed outside the Voth's probability models. The craft stabilized 300 feet above Manhattan. The Voth emissary regarded Ilara with what might have been curiosity. "You have introduced an unexpected variable to our equations," it said quietly. "We must recalculate." The Voth collective ship hovered above the United Nations headquarters, its crystalline surface refracting sunlight into prismatic patterns across the Manhattan skyline. Inside the General Assembly Hall, world leaders listened in stunned silence as the Voth emissary delivered news that redefined humanity's place in the cosmos. The Moraks have consumed 12 worlds in the last 87 cycles, the crystalline being stated, projecting three-dimensional images of planetary systems reduced to lifeless husks. Their hive mind assimilates all useful biological and technological information before moving to the next viable system. Ilara watched from the side of the stage, her security clearance elevated to absurd levels following the shuttle incident. The mathematical probability of Earth's survival, according to Voth calculations, was 0.76%. "We offer evacuation for optimal specimens," the Voth continued. "Approximately 0.003% of your population can be accommodated based on cognitive potential and genetic diversity metrics." The room erupted in outrage. Who would choose the optimal specimens? Who would be left behind? "Your emotional response is noted but irrelevant," the Voth stated. "The mathematics are absolute. Complete defense is impossible given your technological limitations." Ilara stepped forward without authorization, earning alarmed looks from security personnel. "Your calculations are based on current human capabilities," she challenged, her voice carrying through the hall. "They don't account for our developmental discontinuities." The Voth's crystalline structure shifted slightly, the equivalent of a raised eyebrow. "The anomalous neural events you call breakpoints are statistically insignificant outliers. Then explain how we saved your shuttle when your equations predicted certain failure." A murmur ran through the assembly. The incident had been classified, but rumors had spread. The Voth was silent for 3.2 seconds, an eternity for a being that processed information at quantum speeds. One statistical anomaly does not invalidate a mathematical model. "Then give us the chance to produce more anomalies," Ilara pressed. "Share your knowledge of the Moraks. Let us develop our own solutions." "Impossible. Your cognitive framework cannot incorporate advanced xenobiological concepts." Ilara's patience snapped. "You keep telling us what humans can't do, yet your precious equations failed to predict what we already did. Your models are incomplete because you're measuring the wrong variables." The hall fell silent. Nobody spoke to the Voth this way. After another extended pause, the crystalline being answered, "Propose an alternative approach." Ilara took a deep breath. "The Crucible Protocol. A series of controlled crisis scenarios designed specifically to trigger breakpoint events across diverse human groups." She outlined her plan. "Establish research centers worldwide, recruiting people from all backgrounds, scientists, artists, laborers, children. Subject them to carefully designed challenges that pushed the limits of human capability, but with sufficient safeguards to prevent actual harm. Impossible problems require impossible solutions," she concluded. "And humans achieve the impossible precisely when your equations say we can't." The world leaders watched in tense silence as the Voth processed her proposal. Finally, it responded. "Your approach has a probability of success too small to be meaningfully expressed as a non-zero number," the Voth stated. "However, the mathematical anomalies surrounding human performance warrant further investigation. We will provide limited information regarding Moraks capabilities and observe your crucibles." Later, in a secure briefing room, General Rivera confronted Ilara. "Do you realize what you've done? You've bet humanity's survival on a theory the scientific community still largely rejects." "The Voth aren't telling us everything," Ilara replied, studying the data they've been given. They're too interested in our breakpoints. This isn't just about saving us from the Morax. What do you mean? I think we scare them, she said quietly. Not what we are now, but what we might become. Across the globe, construction began on the first Breakpoint labs. Humanity had 18 months to evolve or face extinction. In orbit, the Voth observers added a new variable to their models: potential existential threat. Breakpoint Lab 7 hummed with activity. Formerly an abandoned automotive factory in Detroit, it now housed one of the most radical scientific experiments in human history. Similar facilities operated across 6 continents, each with a different focus but the same impossible goal: transcend human limitations before the Morax arrived. The art team's results make no sense, Dr. Mitsuki Tanaka said, sliding her tablet across the table to Ilara. They've created a functional prototype that violates at least 3 laws of thermodynamics. Ilara studied the schematics, a power generation system conceptualized not by physicists but by sculptors, musicians, and visual artists who'd been subjected to increasingly complex challenges under controlled stress conditions. It doesn't violate the laws of physics, Ilara replied, unable to hide her excitement. It operates within parameters we haven't considered before. Their lack of traditional training let them approach the problem without preconceptions. In the 12 months since the crucibles began, the results had been erratic but increasingly astonishing. A group of theoretical physicists working with indigenous knowledge keepers had developed a communication system that somehow transmitted information faster than light, not by breaking physical laws, but by exploiting quantum entanglement in ways established science had dismissed as impossible. The Voth observers have increased again, Mitsuki noted. They're watching this facility 24 hours a day now. Good, Ilara said. Let them watch. The crystalline aliens had maintained their cold distance, providing only the minimum information about Morax capabilities they'd promised. Their interest, however, was unmistakable, especially in Crucible 12, where neurologically diverse children solved mathematical problems that supercomputers couldn't process. Dr. Kwan to medical immediately, the facility's AI announced. Ilara found chaos in the medical wing. 3 researchers from Crucible 9 laid unconscious, brain scans showing unprecedented neural activity. They were working on Morax bioadaptation when their entire team simultaneously collapsed, Dr. Okafor explained. But look at their neural patterns, classic breakpoint architecture forming in real time. Wake them carefully, Ilara instructed. Record everything. When the researchers regained consciousness, they spoke almost in unison, describing biological countermeasures against Morax assimilation techniques that no human could possibly have imagined. Their solution, elegant, comprehensive, terrifying, came not from logical deduction, but from something deeper, as if their minds had evolved specifically to solve this one impossible problem. The Voth observer who had been silently watching stepped forward. This development exceeds statistical possibility, it stated. We require an explanation. Before Ilara could respond, emergency alarms blared throughout the facility. Security breach in Crucible 8, announced the AI. Unauthorized access to quantum relay prototypes. On monitors throughout the facility, they watched armed intruders methodically destroying research equipment and stealing data cores. Not aliens, humans in tactical gear with corporate insignias partially concealed on their shoulders. Somebody doesn't want us to succeed, Mitsuki whispered. The attack ended as quickly as it began, leaving 3 researchers dead and months of work destroyed. Similar incidents occurred simultaneously at facilities across the globe, precision strikes targeting the most promising breakthroughs. At an emergency council meeting, accusations flew between nations, corporations, and military leaders. The Voth observer remained silent until Ilara directly addressed it. Did you know this would happen? She demanded. Internal conflict is a statistically predictable response to existential pressure among hierarchical species, it answered. Your kind invariably seeks advantage even against common threats. That's not who we are, Ilara insisted. Evidence suggests otherwise, the Voth replied. These disruptions reduce your already minimal probability of success to effectively zero. As if to punctuate its point, urgent communications interrupted the meeting. The Mars research colony had gone silent. Long-range telescopes detected unknown objects moving through the outer solar system at impossible speeds. The Morax were early. Humanity's time had run out. The Mars colony footage played on repeat across every screen in Breakpoint Command. 15,000 colonists, scientists, engineers, families, gone in less than 6 hours. The Morax moved like liquid shadow through the habitation domes, their forms constantly shifting. Adapting to each new defense, the colonists improvised. They knew exactly how we respond, whispered Colonel Reyes, who had lost his daughter on Mars. Every tactic, every contingency. It's like they were inside our heads. Ilara studied the footage frame by frame, noting how the Morax anticipated each human strategy seconds before implementation. The aliens' physical forms were equally disturbing. Vaguely humanoid one moment, then reconfiguring into something entirely different when the situation required it. They're testing us, Ilara said suddenly. The room fell silent. This isn't just an invasion. It's reconnaissance. The Morax are deliberately triggering crisis responses to study our breakpoint potential. General Rivera looked skeptical. You're saying they're not just killing us. They're studying how we react when they kill us. Exactly. Look at the pattern. They didn't just overwhelm the colony with superior force. They created specific scenarios that forced the colonists to innovate. Ilara pulled up schematics of the colony's makeshift defenses. These solutions shouldn't have been possible with the available resources, yet in their final hours, the colonists achieved several technological breakthroughs. That's twisted, Mitsuki said. They're manufacturing breakpoints to learn our capabilities. The Voth observer, who had remained unusually quiet since the Mars attack, finally spoke. The Morax consumption protocol typically begins with assimilation of a species' adaptive potential before biomass absorption. They are evaluating which human variants merit preservation within their collective. The implications were horrifying. Earth had less than a week before the main Morax force arrived. We need more breakpoints, faster, Ilara said. Every insight from every crucible, implemented immediately. We've hit biological limits, Dr. Okafor objected. The neural architecture can't handle forced breakpoint acceleration. Test subjects are experiencing diminishing returns, some with permanent brain damage. Then we need a force multiplier, Ilara replied. She brought up schematics for a device the UK team had theorized. A neural interface that could potentially amplify breakpoint cognition by synchronizing multiple minds. This is untested technology, Rivera warned. The mortality risk is irrelevant compared to extinction, Ilara finished. And I'll test it myself. The procedure took place 12 hours later. The interface, a lattice of quantum-entangled particles, was surgically embedded along Ilara's cerebral cortex. The pain was excruciating as the system calibrated to her neural patterns. Neural synchronization at 30% and climbing, reported the medical team. Brain activity off the charts. She should be seizing, but she's stable. Inside Ilara's mind, reality fractured and reassembled. She perceived patterns within patterns, connections invisible to normal consciousness. The Morax, the Voth, humanity, all moving through webs of causality, she could now trace and manipulate. When she finally spoke, her voice was calm but different, layered with harmonics that hadn't been there before. I understand now, she said, her eyes tracking information no one else could see. The Morax aren't what we thought. The Voth aren't what they claim. She turned to the crystalline observer, seeing through its carefully constructed facade. You've been lying to us from the beginning. This isn't about classification or observation. Her voice hardened. This is about fear. You're terrified of what we might become. The Voth's crystalline form vibrated in what might have been alarm. Your augmentation exceeds predicted parameters. This development must be contained. Too late, Ilara replied, as alarms began blaring throughout the facility. The Morax main fleet has entered Earth orbit. The endgame has begun. She stood, neural pathways glowing faintly beneath her skin. And now I know how they think. The Morax descended upon Earth like a storm of living shadows. Major cities worldwide reported simultaneous attacks, the alien forms adapting to each defensive measure almost instantly. Conventional weapons proved useless. The Morax simply reconfigured their biological structures to absorb or deflect the damage. Yet something unexpected was happening. Across the globe, humans began manifesting abilities that defied explanation. In Seoul, a subway operator somehow perceived the attack minutes before it occurred, evacuating hundreds before the station collapsed. In Nairobi, a school teacher created an improvised force field using educational equipment that shouldn't have worked as anything but teaching aids. In Rio, a street artist's mural somehow disrupted Morax sensory systems, creating a safe corridor for evacuation. At Breakpoint Command, Ilara monitored these anomalies through her enhanced perception, neural pathways glowing beneath her skin. "It's happening everywhere," she reported. "Spontaneous breakpoints activating without our crucible protocols." "Mass hysteria," General Rivera suggested. "People seeing what they want to see in a crisis." "No," Ilara replied. "The existential threat is triggering dormant neural pathways across the population. The stress threshold has been reached globally." She turned to the screens tracking the phenomena. And something else is emerging, a form of distributed consciousness. They're beginning to synchronize. Reports confirmed her assessment. Disparate groups were coordinating defense efforts with impossible precision, despite communication systems being down. People who had never met suddenly worked together, as if sharing a single mind while maintaining individual creativity and agency. The Voth, who had been observing with increasing alarm, finally intervened. A squadron of crystalline vessels descended upon a neighborhood in Mumbai, where particularly strong breakpoint activities were manifesting. "What are they doing?" Mitsuki demanded. The answer came moments later as the Voth ships emitted a pulse that dropped every human in a 3-mile radius into unconsciousness. "Cognitive containment," Ilara said grimly. "They're neutralizing the most advanced breakpoints. The Voth aren't here to help us. They're controlling an evolutionary firebreak. But the Morax are a threat, yes, but a known quantity. What humanity is becoming." Ilara's augmented eyes flickered with calculations. "That's an unknown the Voth can't tolerate." She accessed the Global Defense Network, broadcasting to all remaining breakpoint labs. "The Voth are targeting breakpoint manifestations. Shield your facilities. Deploy countermeasures according to Protocol Omega." Protocol Omega, the contingency no one had wanted to consider, called for using the breakthrough technologies against any force that threatened humanity's evolution, even their supposed allies. "This is insurrection against the Voth," Rivera warned. "This is survival," Ilara countered. "And our only chance against the Morax." She interfaced directly with the command systems, her augmented mind processing strategies at inhuman speeds. Under her guidance, defenders began employing seemingly irrational tactics, falling back when attack seemed prudent, striking at apparently insignificant targets, creating defensive formations that made no conventional sense. The Morax advance faltered for the first time. "Their predictive models are failing," Ilara explained. "The hive mind relies on anticipating logical responses. By introducing deliberate irrationality governed by higher-order logic they can't perceive, we've created confusion in their system." The strategy bought precious time, allowing more breakpoints to emerge and coordinate. A global network of enhanced human consciousness began to form. Not a hive mind like the Morax, but a symphonic collaboration of distinct individuals reaching beyond their limitations together. The Voth commander materialized in the command center, its crystalline form pulsing with energy patterns Ilara recognized as extreme agitation. "You must terminate this cognitive acceleration immediately," it demanded. The emergence rate has exceeded catastrophic thresholds. We're winning, Rivera objected. You are becoming, the Voth corrected. And what you become will not be human. We have seen this before. The outcome is always the same. Before anyone could respond, the command center's sensors detected a new development. The Morax attack pattern had changed. They were withdrawing from combat, regrouping into a formation no one had predicted. They're adapting, Ilara whispered. But not to fight, to communicate. The Morax vessel hovered above Breakpoint Command, its surface rippling like oil on water. Unlike the aggressive forms that had devastated Mars, this construct seemed designed specifically for interaction. The command center's atmosphere was tense as the alien entity requested permission to send a representative. It's a trap, General Rivera insisted. They've realized direct confrontation isn't working, so they're attempting infiltration. Ilara studied the vessel through her enhanced perception. No, they've encountered something they don't understand, our unpredictability. The hive mind operates on perfect information sharing. They can't comprehend how we coordinate without complete neural integration. Despite security objections, Ilara authorized the meeting. The Morax representative materialized in the containment chamber, a humanoid form that shifted subtly, as though struggling to maintain cohesion. You are not what we expected, it said, its voice a harmonic chorus of multiple tones. You are disconnected yet connected, individuals yet collective. This contradicts all evolutionary models. We call it humanity, Ilara replied simply. The creature's form rippled. We have consumed 12 species before you. All followed predictable adaptive paths. You improvise. Through her augmented consciousness, Ilara perceived layers of information beneath the Morax's words: fear, confusion, and something unexpected: desperation. You're not invaders, she realized suddenly. You're refugees. The revelation stunned everyone in the room except the Voth observer, whose crystalline structure vibrated in what Ilara now recognized as agitation. This exchange must terminate, the Voth demanded. The Morax employed deception to lower defenses, but Ilara's enhanced mind had already assembled the pieces. The Morax aren't lying. They're fleeing from something. That's why they consume other species. They're absorbing diverse evolutionary strategies, looking for a defense against something even they can't fight. The Morax representative's form stabilized slightly. The Ancient Ones awakened cyclically. They engineer conflicts between species, testing evolutionary approaches. Those that fail are eliminated. Those that demonstrate potential are harvested. For what purpose? Mitsuki asked. Evolution of the Ancient Ones themselves. They seed the galaxy, return to hibernation, then awaken to collect the most promising adaptations. The command center fell silent as the implications became clear. The Morax, the Voth, humanity, all were subjects in a vast evolutionary experiment. The Voth had achieved perfect logical efficiency. The Morax had perfected collective adaptation through assimilation. Humans had developed something else entirely: transformative potential through breakpoint cognition. The Ancient Ones will arrive soon, the Morax continued. We detected their awakening signals. When they discover your cognitive architecture, they will harvest your entire species. Is that why you attacked us? Rivera demanded. To eliminate competition for survival. To assimilate your adaptive potential before the harvest, the Morax corrected. We offered salvation through incorporation into our collective. By destroying our individuality, Ilara responded. Individual extinction versus collective preservation, the Morax countered. A logical choice. The Voth observer finally spoke. The Morax speak truth about the Ancient Ones. Our species encountered them in an earlier cycle. We survived by demonstrating perfect logical efficiency, becoming predictable, non-threatening, useful as catalogers rather than competitors. Ilara's enhanced perception caught the subtle harmonic in the Voth's voice, a frequency of deception. You're not just catalogers, she realized. You're cultivators. You identify species with unusual potential and contain them, prevent them from advancing too quickly before the Ancient Ones return. Evolutionary stability preserves the galactic order, the Voth stated without denial. And species like humanity, with unpredictable breakpoint potential, threaten that stability, Ilara continued. We're not just inconvenient to your models, we're dangerous to your arrangement with these Ancient Ones. Before the Voth could respond, global sensors detected massive energy signatures materializing at the edge of the solar system. The Ancient Ones had arrived, a full cycle early, drawn by the unusual evolutionary activity. They offer the same choice to all species, the Moraks said quietly. Join their collective or face extinction. Ilara's augmented mind raced with possibilities. Or option 3, something they've never encountered before. The Ancient Ones manifested as vast geometric constructs of impossible dimensions, their forms seeming to fold through realities beyond human perception. Their message, broadcast simultaneously to every consciousness on Earth, was simple: submit to evaluation. Join our collective evolution or face extinction. Breakpoint command had become the nexus of humanity's response. Voth observers maintained perfect stillness, their crystalline forms aligned precisely according to some ancient protocol. The Moraks representative had retreated into a defensive configuration. They offer ascension, the Voth explained. Incorporation of your most valuable cognitive attributes into their collective. It is the highest honor in their paradigm. While discarding everything else that makes us human, Ilara countered. She turned to face the assembled leaders. The Ancient Ones engineer these conflicts to drive specific evolutionary paths, then harvest the results. They've created a system where species either evolve toward perfect logic like the Voth, perfect collective adaptation like the Moraks, or extinction. Through her augmented perception, Ilara could see the neural network linking humanity's breakpoint manifestations worldwide, a symphony of individual minds becoming something greater without sacrificing their uniqueness. An idea formed. The technology from Crucible 9, she said suddenly. The neural interface prototype. Can we adapt it to connect different species? Dr. Okafor looked skeptical. Theoretically, perhaps, but the biological incompatibilities. Not at the biological level, Ilara interrupted. At the cognitive level. A shared mental space where different evolutionary approaches can interface directly. Understanding dawned on Mitsuki's face. Not a melding, but a collaboration. Not erasing differences, but leveraging them. As the Ancient Ones' evaluation countdown continued, a desperate plan took shape. Volunteers from each species, human, Voth, and Moraks, were connected through a hastily modified neural interface network. Ilara led the human contingent, her already augmented mind serving as the primary conduit. The experience defied description. Human intuition and transformative potential merged with Voth logical precision, and Moraks' adaptive collective intelligence. In the shared mental space, they experienced each other's cognitive realities, not as invaders or competitors, but as collaborators. Together, they crafted a response to the Ancient Ones that none could have conceived alone. When the evaluation arrived, the Ancient Ones encountered something unprecedented, a cognitive architecture that incorporated multiple evolutionary approaches simultaneously. Not a hive mind, not perfect logic, not chaotic potential, but a dynamic synthesis that preserved the strengths of each while transcending their individual limitations. We reject both extinction and absorption, Ilara transmitted, speaking for the temporary collective. We offer a third path, collaboration without homogenization. Evolution through diversity rather than selection. The Ancient Ones' response was initial confusion, then something approximating curiosity. For the first time in countless cycles, they encountered an approach to evolution they had not engineered or anticipated. In the tense hours that followed, humanity demonstrated the power of their approach. The combined cognitive architecture solved problems the Ancient Ones presented that would have been impossible for any single species. More importantly, they demonstrated that the solution emerged precisely because of their differences, not despite them. Your evolutionary paradigm is inefficient. The Voth component of their collective argued with perfect logic. By harvesting selected traits and discarding others, you create evolutionary dead ends. True advancement comes not from optimizing a single path, the human component added, but from the creative friction between different paths. The Ancient Ones' final decision came as antimatter flares across their vast forms, a gesture later understood as the closest approximation to respect they could express. They withdrew their extinction threat, and more significantly, altered their cosmic directive. In the aftermath, as the neural interfaces were disconnected, something remained, a fundamental understanding between species that had evolved along radically different paths. What happens now? General Rivera asked as Earth began its recovery. Ilara watched the Voth and Morax representatives communicating with their kind, former enemies, now tentative allies. Now we build something new. Not human, not Voth, not Morax, but a civilization defined by the creative potential of our differences. She smiled as new breakpoints continued to emerge worldwide, humanity still evolving in unpredictable ways. The universe expected us to choose between perfect order and perfect adaptation. Instead, we offered the human constant, transformation through connection. The Ancient Ones departed with a final message. They would return not as harvesters, but as students. For the first time in eons, they had found something truly new.